Hello and welcome to the Social Media Forum. Tonight on the show we're going to be talking on how social media contribute as sources for journalists. And to discuss this issue with me, I have Joseph. Joseph is editor-in-chief of me.com. Joseph?
Thank you.
And there's Christy. Christy is a producer with Voice of Nigeria. Thank you very much. And I also have Leader with me. That Leader is a radio scriptwriter. First, I'd like to start with Joseph. What is social media?
I will look at social media as a use of web-based communication mobile technologies that assist and help us to communicate with our audiences. So I will look at, as a journalist or as an editor, I will look at social media as a technology, a form of technology that helps me as an editor to communicate with citizens.
Now, do you see social media contributing as sources of stories for you as a journalist?
Yes, throughout my years in journalism, in about 30 years, I have come to deal with social media as my form of communication within the professional settings. For instance, I use LinkedIn as a way of getting sources for interviews, and also I use Twitter a lot to get forms of sources that I could interview. So over the years, it has evolved itself as a prominent and very important way of getting sources to begin with interviews.
Now let me move on to Christy. Christy, you are a radio producer. Do you use social media in getting information for your program?
Oh yes, I do. What I normally do is navigate the internet, go through different social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, and source for information for my program. Then I don't just source, I don't leave it at source needs alone. I try to find out the reliability, the credibility of that source, which I use for my program.
Okay, we'll take this discourse further. Earlier on, I spoke with Mr. Mark Little, who is the founder of Storyful.com. Storyful.com is a news agency built purposely for the social media age. Yeah, that is Storyful. All you need to do is just sign in, just like you sign into Twitter or you sign into YouTube, and you share your story. And when I spoke with him this afternoon, he talked about how he marries traditional media with social media. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
First, what informed your decision to set up Storyful.com?
Well, I suppose everybody who creates a business has a moment when a light bulb goes on above their head and they suddenly realize that they have to do something. In 2009 in Iran, there were protests on the street, and for the first time, people with camera phones, young people with Twitter accounts and Facebook pages did.
So in a nutshell, what you basically do is to make sense of it all.
That's right. We always say the phrase is news from noise. There's lots of noise out there. There are 35 hours of YouTube video uploaded every single minute. There's about 190 million tweets a day. So how do you find the really authentic, powerful, compelling stories in all that noise? Well, we're trying to develop not techniques, but also tools and apps that will help people do that.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. What I was saying earlier on is, as a journalist, the credibility of your story is very important. And
Yep.
so in all this huge information you get, how do you sift through to verify what actually is a fact?
What we do is we use traditional journalistic techniques, which is, in many cases, what we first do is when we see, for example, a video that emerges from a place like Syria or from Yemen, we will try and do the old job of journalists. I will go check against existing reports to see if that incident did actually happen. We can do other techniques, for example, Google Street View, Google Earth. There are certain tools that we can use that are supplied to us that can help us track down the facts. Also, one of the things we do, for example, very basic thing, you see a video shows that there's sunshine in a particular town, and we know that the weather forecast tells us it's rainy. We know that video is not at all credible. But the most important thing is the individual who gave us the information. So what we will do is build a list of reputable sources in each country. We do that through Twitter. And we will follow those sources. We will establish whether or not they're sending out reputable material. So we establish the credibility of the individual who is sharing the information. That is the primary means of establishing the veracity of a piece of content from YouTube or Twitter. Another way we do things is we make contact with people. This is the old journalistic technique of contacting an individual through Twitter, Facebook, or even YouTube, and contacting them and asking them to supply us with details and more proof of what they said to be the case in their video, in their tweet, in their Facebook entry. We also have established contact with many activist groups who are patient for people on the ground. So in Libya, there's particularly reputable groups that we rely on to verify videos, and the same in Syria. So this is really a range of techniques we are starting to call the human algorithm. If you take a community of people, and every event creates a community on social media, you just need to get into that community, talk to the community, and they will help you verify the facts on the ground. It's really what journalism has always been: talking to people, establishing facts, and trying to make sure you know what the situation is. And that's exactly what we do. We just do it with new tools in a new environment.
Now, from what you've said so far, it's like you're marrying the old with the new, marrying traditional media with the social media. But there are some journalists in the traditional media who feel threatened by the social media. What's your take on that?
I can understand why. I think that if you think that your future will be sitting in front of a word processor in an office and all you're going to do is talk to people who don't talk back to you, then you're fooling yourself. If news organizations do not embrace social media, they will be left behind. They will have no financial future. So the first thing I would say is, I understand your fear, but this is not a choice. You do not have whether or not to accept or reject social media. It will come and change your world no matter what. The second thing I would say is that social media provides us with, I believe, the beginning of a golden age of journalism, where we can start to engage with the audience. We can start to engage in a much more effective way with authentic witnesses on the ground. I was a foreign correspondent. I used to spend lots of money for my news organization to employ a fixer, a driver, to bring edit equipment, translators. It was not a very pleasant experience. Now, as a journalist, I can talk around that are right there, are seeing with their own eyes what's going on. I think it's a much better form of journalism as long as we, the journalists, get involved. The only reason why social media right now is not reliable is because reliable journalists are not taking it seriously. And as soon as we decide that we have a role in making this a much more dependable source of journalism, that's when things start to change. So I would say embrace it. It's the future. You don't have a choice. And together, if the more of us that embrace this new form of journalism, call it social journalism, the better quality it will be. And as you rightly say, it is old tricks and old in a new box. And that's the way I sum up my approach to what I call social journalism.
Now, leader, from what you've heard Mr. Little say, you are a radio script writer. Now, how do you intend, because you said, before we came on the show, you said you would like to use social media to get sources, to get information for some of the programming you do. So how do you, as what you said, has it helped you to make up your mind to really do it? And if yes, how do you intend to do that?
Yeah, so far I use the social media to explore about the current world trends, and then to search or to learn about the audience flavor so that I can write the content, a script that really meets their interest. And also it's a place where I can reach my audience. It means like they can always go to the page and then look for the information that related to my program. So I think I display myself as a really reliable source where they can learn something about the information about the youth program, because I work on the youth program. And I think it's much easier for me comparing to the last few years when I use social media. I don't have to go around and ask people call like what you interest and what you really want to know. So I got a thank for the social media on this.
So in a nutshell, it can help you cut costs, especially with regard to logistics. It will cut costs with you going around, so you save more money.
Yeah.
Producing your
And
programs
time.
now than when you were not using social media.
Yeah.
Now, Joseph, I would like to come to you again. When Mr. Little was talking, he talked about a support system that helps him verify his story. I don't think you have that luxury.
No, I do not have that luxury.
So how do you verify your sources?
Yeah, what I do is that after getting, let's say, a source on Facebook, for instance, what I do is I go to a professional page like LinkedIn. Then I also type the same name, trying to search the same background information as I had on Facebook. I do this on LinkedIn, then I do the same on Twitter. So after doing all these things, I have also acquired some skills of searching and researching on the internet, the background of people and stuff like that. So I do that, type in, if the person has a website or anything, that gives me a clue to a bit of information I could get. Then I type in and then do a research. The point really is that doing a background check doesn't lie within only one source, but then it keeps you on and on and on, and then it leads you to further information that you will need subsequently to interview your guest. So basically that is how